There are 5 misunderstood ideas as it pertains to the entire Musk business empire, and in this video, I want to cover all 5. None of these ideas are investment or financial advice. And the first one is related to full self-driving, Tesla's autonomous systems for their cars. And the reason it's so misunderstood is that everybody is staring at robotaxi, which is a dedicated network, and the cybercab, which are the 2-seater cars with no steering wheels and pedals. And I get why, but the more I dig into the actual economics, the more convinced I am that robotaxi is a red herring. The real thing that people should be focusing on is the recurring subscription revenue, specifically FSD, the software that lets a Tesla drive itself while you supervise and very soon while you're not paying attention, running on regular cars with steering wheels and pedals that people already own. Let's think about it this way. What does a robotaxi network actually need? It needs charging depots. It needs cleaning depots. Somebody has to deal with the guy that spilled his burrito or worse in the backseat at 2 a.m., right? Someone has to own the cars, insure the cars, park the car somewhere overnight. And on top of all of that, you need a regulatory regime that mostly doesn't exist yet, city by city, state by state, country by country, which is exactly why unsupervised FSD, specifically in robotaxi vehicles, as of July 26, is still confined to a small robotaxi fleet in Austin, Dallas, Houston, and Miami as of July of 26. The grind that's required to scale all of this up is going to take multiple years at a minimum, at least at this pace. Now compare that to a regular Tesla with a steering wheel and pedals, or even a cybercab with a steering wheel and pedals, like the one Tesla is currently testing everywhere around the country right now. What does that car basically need? Nothing. It's already legal in pretty much every country on earth. The charging depot is your garage. The cleaning depot is you. And the thing regulators love most, a licensed human sitting in the driver's seat, is already sitting right there. That's the whole reason the Netherlands approved FSD in April 26, the first country in Europe to do it, with EU-wide approval right behind it. The car still has a driver. And Tesla already showed their hand here, at least the way I read it. On February 14th, 26, they killed the one-time FSD purchase. That's gone now. You can't buy it outright anymore. The only way right now is by purchasing it for $99 a month, every month for the life of the car. This is for supervised self-driving, where the driver is still required to pay attention. Now, what happens to the price when you don't have to pay attention anymore? Everybody assumes $99 a month will be the price forever, but the reality is that it's the floor. Right now, you're paying for a really good assistant that you still have to technically babysit. The moment the car drives and you're only in that seat for regulatory reasons, not paying attention, reading, answering emails, taking a nap, whatever you want, the product changes completely. You're getting your time back. An hour a day, maybe 2, handed back to you. And people pay to get their time back. People pay crazy money to get their time back. So my call, my forward-looking guess is that the price goes up well past $100 a month the day supervision stops being required. A full-time driver runs you thousands of dollars a month. Tesla can offer unsupervised self-driving for $500 a month or something like that. And believe me, so many people would pay that to not have to pay attention anymore in their cars. And then there is the margin side, how much money Tesla would make on this. What does it cost Tesla to deliver that subscription to a car that's already on the road? Almost nothing. The computer is already in the car. The customer paid for it when they bought the vehicle, right? The training compute, data pipeline, the whole self-driving brain, the systems to monitor, the hardware necessary for it to operate like the cameras. Tesla built all of that anyway for everything else that they are already doing. So every new subscriber lands at close to pure margin. It's a flip of a switch. Literally one over-the-air update and millions of cars that already exist start generating software margins every single month. Now run that forward. Millions of cars per year added to a fleet, $100+ a month, $200, $300, $500 a month, near pure margin, compounding as the fleet grows. That's a recurring cash machine that gets bigger than the car business it sits on top of, way more cash than anybody needs to just keep building cars. These go from cars that you just drive to robots on wheels, just like the Matic robot vacuum in our home that we've renamed to Roberto. Roberto runs on a 5-camera vision system powered by AI, the same pure vision approach Tesla uses with FSD, and he gets software updates that make him smarter over time, just like a Tesla. The app is one of the most intuitive apps I've ever used. He's is great with the kids and the pets, and it is the most reliable robot vacuum we've ever owned. And my wife has some of the highest cleaning standards that I've ever seen, and she doesn't hate this thing. That's a 20,000 star review on Amazon. If you want to check it out, use my referral link in the description or the comment section below. And thank you so much to Matic for sponsoring this video. Now, on July 1st, 2026, Elon posted a photo of himself walking the Optimus production line at Fremont, California. That line is going in where the Model S and Model X used to be built, with Gen 3 Optimus production starting sometime this year. And when someone asked Elon about the ramp, his own reply was that production will be slow at first as everything is new. Which leads us to the next idea. Humanoid robots are inevitable. They are coming way faster than almost anyone expects, and they show up in businesses first, then in your home. And I think the reason people get the timing so wrong is that they're paying attention to the wrong part of the robot. The question you have to ask yourself is, what is the hardest piece of a humanoid robot? Most people will say the body, like walking, balancing, the hands. And yes, these are very hard, but that's not really the most important piece. The body is the part you can see, so it feels like the whole problem. The hardest piece is the brain. This machine has to look at a messy, unpredictable physical world in literally any condition, understand what it's seeing, and decide what to do next in real time. Nobody has fully cracked that in a general way. But guess what? One company has been training that exact brain for years, and we literally just covered it with millions of Teslas with cameras on, learning the physical world every single day. Things like studying what a kid chasing a ball into the street actually means, how objects move, what to do when something unexpected steps out. That is by far the biggest physical world data set anyone has ever collected, and Tesla is moving that intelligence straight into Optimus. It's got the same vision-based approach, the same neural networks, the same training computers, the same stack that the robot uses to navigate, understand, and manipulate the world. The hardest piece of that whole robot is the piece Tesla already has, which leaves the hand. The hand is the last real hardware problem, and it's where the effort is going. The Gen 3 hand has 22 degrees of freedom. That just means 22 independent ways the joints can move, up from 11 on Gen 2. A humanoid that can walk but can't manipulate things is a statue with just good balance, right? The hand is what turns it into something that's productive and useful. Now, actuators are hard. Tiny motors, gearing, sensors, all packed into the space of a finger. But a better actuator comes from repetition, from manufacturing reps. You build 1,000 of them, you see what breaks, you build the next 1,000 better and cheaper. A lot of these parts don't even exist yet as off-the-shelf components, so Tesla is designing and building them in-house. Verticalizing parts that don't exist yet is something Tesla and SpaceX have done 1,000 times over. That muscle, no pun intended, is already built. Now, real quick, if you're enjoying this video and you're not subscribed yet, one of the easiest ways to support the channel is by clicking subscribe. It's completely free and it goes a very long way. Thank you so much. Okay, so who actually gets these robots first? My bet is businesses. And for me, the answer comes down to safety. Tesla's plan is thousands of units running internal tests inside their own factories before anyone outside gets a single one. A factory floor is extremely controlled. You can rope off a work cell and keep the robot away from people while it learns. But your house has stairs. It has dogs, cats, toddlers, clutter in every direction. A full-size robot falling over near a kid is the kind of event Tesla cannot afford even once. So the factory comes first, then the warehouse, then way down the line, your kitchen or your bedroom. Now, the economics is what's going to drive this technology to the masses. The estimates floating around in 2026 put humanoid labor costs somewhere around $3 to $5 an hour all in once fully ramped, against $22 to $28 an hour for human warehouse labor, as an example in the US. And that's trending to $2 to $3 an hour, which will keep dropping as production scales. So if you're running a plant, what does that decision actually look like? $25 an hour or $3 an hour for the repetitive, boring, dangerous work? Look at how much automation Amazon already does in the warehouses with super expensive robots. Imagine if the cost is far cheaper than human labor right from the get-go, and you don't have to wait for the machine to pay you back. Businesses are going to buy these things hand over fist. It's a no-brainer. Now, for the next idea, and this one is going to surprise a lot of people, even the diehard Tesla fans and investors, is drones. In my opinion, an Elon drone is inevitable, and honestly, of the 5 ideas in this video, this might be the most obvious of them all. Now run the logic with me. What does a drone actually need? It needs 3 things: propulsion, battery, and a brain. Let's start with propulsion and aerodynamics. SpaceX has lived in that world since 2002. These are the people who land orbital class rockets on boats in the ocean and catch rockets out of the air with towers with giant arms. Going from rocket engines to electric fans is a step down in difficulty, not up. The battery is the easiest one of the 3. Arguably, Tesla builds batteries at scale at cost almost nobody on Earth can touch. And the brain is the same FSD stack I've now spent 2 ideas on. A drone at 400 feet doesn't deal with pedestrians or cyclists or 4-way stops. If that brain can drive a car through downtown Austin, flying a cargo drone is the easier problem. To me, this is a SpaceX Tesla partnership waiting for an announcement date, probably when they announce their inevitable merger. And the first use case writes itself. It's point-to-point hauling. The global drone market is running at about $69 billion in 2026, and America barely built any of the hardware. Domestic drone manufacturing in this country is basically hollowed out, which is crazy. A drone whose propulsion, batteries, and autonomy are all built in America will be a massive unlock for domestic manufacturing, and the fact that the Pentagon is out here running contests for drone autonomy tells me that this is an inevitable outcome. The reality is that these AI brains that manipulate physical robots like cars or robots or drones or whatever, that brain doesn't care what the body looks like. It's all about training the brain to execute against the limbs or parts that the robot has. In the case of a car, it's moving the tires a certain way. For a drone, it's moving the propellants a certain way. Now count the products that would sit on this foundation. You have cars, a humanoid robot, and now the drone I just described. Now count the outside suppliers for the most important parts of each one of these technologies, like batteries, chips, motors, autonomy software. And you know what the number is? It's 0. Why? Because Musk Industry builds all these core technologies inside. So the question becomes, why? Why is Musk Industry so psychotic about bringing in the most important core technological components in-house? This brings us to the next misunderstood idea about Musk Industry. This group of companies is building one machine, an end-to-end foundation for intelligence itself, both physical and digital. And that machine has exactly 2 jobs: produce intelligence and then execute that intelligence out in the real world. Start with production at the bottom of the stack with power. Tesla builds its own solar panels and its own megapacks. These are the grid-scale batteries you see parked next to utilities and data centers. The electrons come from in-house hardware. On top of that power sits the compute. Colossus, which is SpaceX AI's data center in Memphis, is running somewhere around 550,000 GPUs as of early 26, with the first phase alone being 230,000, on the way to 1 million of them, pulling about 2 gigawatts when the expansion is finished. A gigawatt is roughly the output of 1 large nuclear reactor. So picture a single building eating the output of 2 nuclear plants. And Tesla runs its own training cluster too, Cortex at Giga Texas in Austin. Then you have the chips inside those machines. Tesla designs its own, the AI5, running at about 150 to 250 watts, a fraction of what the big data center GPUs burn, with samples expected late 26 and volume production in 27. And in April of 26, Intel joined the Terafab joint venture, a project to build chip factories targeting 1 terawatt of compute hardware per year. And on top of that, they're taking the data centers off the planet with AI-1, orbital compute satellites, actual data centers in space. Each one averages 120 kilowatts of compute. It peaks around 150 on a wingspan of about 70 meters, which is wider than a 747. The first launches are slated for late 2027, and the filing describes up to 1 million of them. 1 million satellites at 120 kilowatts average is 120 gigawatts of compute floating overhead, roughly a quarter of the average electrical load of the entire United States in orbit. That is an insane number. And an orbital data center skips every single problem choking data centers on the ground. You don't need a grid connection. You don't need water for cooling. There's no permit fights with the county commission. You just need sunlight. And how does the data move? with Starlink, SpaceX's satellite communication company. The laser links between the satellites are already active today, so the interconnect already exists. And how do 1 million satellites get up there? With Starship, the biggest rocket ever built by SpaceX, which will be the delivery vehicle for the compute layer. I covered the marriage of all these technologies in my new book, Master Plan, What Elon Musk is Really Building. It's available on Amazon, and I'll leave links for that in the description and the comment section below in case you're interested. And so what do you actually do with all that intelligence you now produce? You execute on it. In the digital world, execution is Grok and the agent layer, AI that answers you, researches, writes code, does knowledge work, runs autonomous systems for you. Elon Musk calls it a digital Optimus, a worker with no body. But in the physical world, execution is the cars with FSD, the robot walking off the line at Fremont, the drone I just predicted, etc. All of those things share the same brain, but in different bodies. All of them are running on intelligence produced by the stack underneath it. And that reframes what Tesla even is. This whole ecosystem is a humanity infrastructure company, and the infrastructure is intelligence, physical and digital. Imagine this: roads, power lines, and phone lines were the foundation people built their lives on in the last century. Intelligence is the foundation for the next one. And you and I are going to live on top of that in the same way you live on top of the power grid right now, constantly and without ever thinking about it. This foundation with solar, batteries, chips, satellites, rockets, robots, cars, this entire thing is the first foundation in human history that can be used to build literally anywhere. If you really think about it, Musk Industry is building infrastructure that works in places where nothing exists yet. Why would anybody design it that way? You can only come up with one answer. You design infrastructure that way when the place you plan to run it has nothing there for you when you land. And that is a final misunderstood idea. Everything Musk Industry is building on Earth is for the moon and Mars. The FSD brain is autonomy for anything that moves, with Optimus robots landing ahead of the humans to start building the bases on the moon and Mars. Starlink becomes Marslink or Moonlink. And Gwen Shotwell, the woman who runs SpaceX day-to-day, has publicly endorsed boring company tunnels for Mars habitats. The radiation on the surface pushes the first neighborhoods underground. Starship allows the transport of goods to and from those celestial bodies. And then batteries and solar panels from Tesla power the habitats as well. You can even put AI-1 compute satellites, those data centers in orbit, soaking the energy from the sun, and you just park a shell of them around the moon, and the lunar base gets its intelligence locally. You park them around Mars, and the robots on the surface stop phoning home for instructions. A radio signal between Mars and Earth takes anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes one way, so anything working down there has to think where it is. The compute layer orbits whatever body gets sun, which is all of them. Literally think about it. Nobody's going to pay human crews Earth wages plus life support plus a ride home to pour foundation on Mars. Robot price labor is the only thing that makes building a base on another world affordable at all. So why does every piece get built on Earth first? Because on Earth, you can make money on those products right away, and you can make them better over time. Earth is Mars beta. Earth is moon beta. And the next time Musk Industry launches something that makes 0 sense for a car company or a rocket company, ask yourself this question: what does it do on the moon? What does it do on Mars? And all of a sudden, it'll start to make a lot more sense. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was informative and helpful, and we'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Mwah! Bye-bye.